You are already kept tonight, in this room, in the dark. So was a room full of people in Jerusalem on the night they were told to stay where they were and wait until the Comforter came. That is where the book of Acts begins and where we begin tonight. Nobody in that room was doing anything, and nothing was wrong with them. If you are carrying a name tonight, leave it below and we will carry it into the prayer with the rest. Sleep is welcome to take you in the middle of a sentence tonight. Nothing here depends on your hearing it. Let us pray. Father, come near to the one lying in the dark tonight, and to every name laid down here with them. Take tomorrow out of their hands and keep it yourself until morning. Send your Comforter into this room and let them sleep, kept and unafraid. In Jesus' name, Amen. The Book of Acts, chapter 1. Before he was taken from them, Jesus gave his friends one instruction. It was to wait and, being assembled together with them, commanded them that they should not depart from Jerusalem, but wait for the promise of the Father, which saith he, Ye have heard of me. Jesus was still speaking to them there, and this was the promise he gave next. For John truly baptized with water, but ye shall be baptized with the Holy Ghost not many days hence. When they therefore were come together, they asked of him, saying, Lord, wilt thou at this time restore again the kingdom to Israel? And he said unto them, It is not for you to know the times or the seasons, which the Father hath put in his own power, but ye shall receive power after that the Holy Ghost is come upon you, and ye shall be witnesses unto me both in Jerusalem and in all Judea and in Samaria, and unto the uttermost part of the earth. Let those 4 verses settle for a moment before we go any further. A promise of the Holy Ghost, a question about timing, a gentle refusal to answer that question directly, and then ascending wide enough to cover the whole earth, spoken to people who had not yet moved an inch from where they were sitting. It is a strange order for a story to take, and it is worth sitting inside that strangeness rather than rushing past it. Notice what the first instruction was not. It was not a mission, it was not a plan or a route or a list of names to visit before sundown. The first thing the risen Christ asked of the people who loved him most was to stay exactly where they were and not move. In the whole of this long book, before a single sermon is preached or a single mile is walked, the very first assignment is stillness. That is worth resting in tonight, because you may feel lying here in the dark with your own list unfinished. That stillness is a kind of failure. It is not. For the friends in that upper room, waiting was the obedience. Doing nothing for a little while was exactly what they had been told to do, and no one in the room was in trouble for it. Consider how differently this book might read if it had opened with a command to act. Go immediately and do not stop until it is finished. That version of the story would have suited our usual habits far better, our restless preference for movement over stillness, for visible effort over invisible readiness. But that is simply not the story we were given. We were given a story that begins with permission to sit still and everything that follows, all 28 chapters of it, grows out of that one unhurried beginning. Notice too the question they ask back, Lord, will you now restore the kingdom? It is a question about timing, and it is answered gently by being set aside rather than answered directly. It is not for you to know the times or the seasons which the Father hath put in his own power. That line was not a rebuke, it was a kindness. It moved the weight of the calendar off of ordinary shoulders and set it where it has always belonged, in hands stronger than ours. This is the same weight the prayer set down for you a few minutes ago, when it asked the Father to take tomorrow out of your hands and keep it himself until morning. That was not only a nice thing to say, it is word for word the shape of what Jesus said to the very first people who ever waited for him. The times and the seasons were never yours to carry. They were never meant to be. There is a certain kind of tiredness that comes specifically from trying to hold something that was never sized for human hands to begin with. Tomorrow in its entirety has never once fit inside a single person's grip. We were only ever given today, one at a time, and even that in small enough pieces to actually manage. If tonight you feel worn thin from reaching for more than that, from trying to hold next week or next year, or an outcome that has not even arrived yet, you can set all of it down now. It was always too large for you. It was never meant to be carried alone or carried in advance. So if sleep is heavy on you now, let it be heavy. It is not for you to know the times or the seasons. Whatever tomorrow needs from you, it does not need it yet, and it will still be there, unhurried, in the morning. Let your shoulders drop as you hear that. None of it is going anywhere without you. Think for a moment about what that room must have felt like from the inside. These were people who had just watched everything change again and again in the space of a few short weeks, and it would have been the most natural thing in the world for them to want a task, a road to start walking down that very hour. Instead, they were told to go back into the city and sit in a room. No road yet, no destination named, just a door to wait behind. There's a kind of mercy hidden inside that instruction, easy to miss on a first reading. Sent out immediately, they would have gone out as they were, tired, uncertain, still catching their breath. The waiting was not a delay. It was the shape their readiness needed to take before the rest of the story could safely begin. Nothing was lost in that room. Everything that mattered was still being prepared, quietly, without anyone having to manage the preparing themselves. Think of a field left fallow for a season, not because the farmer has given up on it, but because a field that never rests eventually stops producing anything worth harvesting. The waiting those friends did was not unlike that kind of rest, unglamorous, invisible, and entirely necessary for whatever was going to grow out of them next. There will be time enough in the days ahead for whatever moving and doing your life actually requires of you. Tonight is simply not one of those days. Tonight belongs to the room, to the stillness, to the quiet, unglamorous readiness that asks nothing more of you than to stay whatever is unfinished, none of it is evidence that you have failed to move quickly enough. It is only ready when it is ready. Let your body do now what that room did then. Let it stop reaching forward for tomorrow's tasks and settle back instead into the place it is actually in, which is this bed, this pillow, this slow and unhurried dark. There is nowhere else you need to be for the rest of tonight. There is nothing else you need to be doing. The room waited and it was not idle. You can rest and you are not idle either. Notice one more small thing before we move on. Jesus does not tell them how long the waiting will last. Not many days hence, he says, which is not a date at all, only a gentle assurance that it will not be forever. They were given only a direction soon and left to trust that soon meant something. You may be waiting on something tonight with no clearer timeline than that. It is a hard word to rest inside, and yet it was enough for a whole room full of people to build a quiet season of their lives around. 10 days, as it turned out, was how long soon actually took. Whatever your own soon turns out to measure, it is not a sign that the promise was mistaken. It is only how long this particular soon happens to take. And he said unto them, It is not for you to know the times or the seasons which the Father hath put in his own power. So they did as they were told. They went back into the city, up into a room they already knew, and they waited there together. It matters that they waited together, and it matters that the book takes the trouble to name them, one by one, before it tells us what they did. Whoever wrote this account wanted us to see the room full, not empty. Whatever you are waiting for tonight, you are not waiting the way an abandoned thing waits. You are waiting the way a gathered thing waits, with company around you, even when you cannot see it. There is something almost tender in the way this part of the account slows down to list the names, one after another, as though the writer wanted every single person in that room remembered by name rather than folded into a nameless crowd. You are not a nameless crowd either. Tonight, whatever room you are resting in, you are known there, specifically the way each of those names was known and written down and kept. Picture the walk back into the city for a moment, down from the hillside, along a road. None of them were in any hurry to finish. They had just watched someone they loved leave in a way none of them could follow. That kind of leaving usually sends people home alone, each one carrying their own private version of the loss, closing a door quietly and sitting with it by themselves. That is not what happened here. They walked back together, and they climbed the same stairs together, and they went into the very same room they had shared before, and nobody suggested that anyone go and grieve in private. Grief, when it is carried in company, changes its weight without changing its size. None of them could have known on that walk back down the hillside how the waiting would end or how long it would take. They only knew the direction to walk back toward the room, back toward each other. Sometimes that is the whole of what faith requires in a hard season, not a clear picture of the outcome, only the willingness to keep walking toward the people and the promises that have not yet let you down. That is worth noticing if tonight you are carrying something you have mostly carried alone. You do not have to explain it to anyone in this room with you now. If there is anyone in this room with you now, and you do not have to explain it to fall asleep either. It is simply true that whatever waits with you tonight, it does not have to wait in isolation. Some weights only feel unbearable because we have quietly decided to carry them by ourselves. Consider too the very ordinary shape their grief and their hope took while they waited. They were not weeping openly in the street, and they were not pretending everything was fine either. They simply went up into a familiar room and stayed close to one another, doing small human things, eating, praying, remembering. Whatever season you are in tonight, grief or hope, or some tangled mixture of both, it does not need to look dramatic to be real. It can look exactly like this: a quiet room, familiar walls, people or memories of people near enough to matter. Familiar walls matter more than we sometimes admit. There is a particular comfort in a room you already know, where you do not have to learn the shape of the doorways or the sound the floor makes when someone crosses it. If tonight's room is a familiar one to you, let its familiarity itself be part of what settles you. You have rested here before, you will rest here again. And when he had spoken these things, while they beheld, he was taken up, and a cloud received him out of their sight. And while they looked steadfastly toward heaven as he went up, behold, 2 men stood by them in white apparel, which also said, Ye men of Galilee, why stand ye gazing up into heaven? This same Jesus, which is taken up from you into heaven, shall so come in like manner as ye have seen him go into heaven. Then returned they unto Jerusalem from the mount called Olivet, which is from Jerusalem a Sabbath day's journey. And when they were come in, they went up into an upper room, where abode both Peter and James and John and Andrew, Philip and Thomas, Bartholomew and Matthew, James the son of Alphaeus, and Simon Zelotes, and Judas the brother of James. These all continued with one accord in prayer and supplication, with the women and Mary the mother of Jesus, and with his brethren, with one accord, not one voice exactly, but one direction, the way a room full of separate breathing can still be one breathing if everyone in it has stopped rushing toward different doors. That is roughly what you are doing now, lying still in your own dark room while something you were promised has not arrived yet. You are not doing nothing. You are doing what that room did. You are staying, and you are not ashamed of the staying. Notice too, who was allowed in that room. Not only the men whose names get remembered first, the women were there. His mother was there. His brothers, who had not always believed in him, were there as well, welcomed in without a single condition attached. Whatever brought each of them to that room, doubt or grief or simple loyalty, none of it disqualified them from the waiting. The room did not require anyone to have their faith perfectly sorted out before they were allowed to sit down in it. If your own faith feels unsorted tonight, uncertain in places, worn thin in others, you are still welcome in this room. Nobody at the door is checking. There is only a threshold and a lamp already lit, and space enough for exactly the kind of tired, imperfect waiting you happen to be doing right now. It is worth saying plainly that doubt itself was in that room. His brothers, the account tells us elsewhere, had not believed in him during his lifetime, and yet here they are, gathered with everyone else, waiting on the very promise they had once been unsure of. Whatever doubt you are carrying tonight about anything at all, it has not disqualified you from this room either. Doubt has always been welcome here, waiting alongside everyone else for the same promise to arrive. 10 days, the old accounts tell us, passed this way, with nothing dramatic to report from inside that room. 10 ordinary days of eating together and praying together, and probably wondering more than once whether the promise had been misunderstood, whether the waiting would simply go on forever with nothing ever arriving to end it. If you have ever wondered something like that about a promise of your own, you are in the same room those 10 days describe. The waiting felt long to them too. There was not a sign that anything had gone wrong. 10 days of nothing happening is, by most measures, an unremarkable stretch of time, and yet it is remembered, written down, kept. Sometimes the unremarkable stretch turns out to be exactly the part of the story worth keeping, precisely because it is where the waiting itself was quietly practiced and proven trustworthy. These all continued with one accord in prayer and supplication, with the women, and Mary the mother of Jesus, and with his brethren, continued, the reading says, not began and stopped, not tried once and gave up when nothing seemed to change, continued day after day, in the same room, with the same people, saying more or less the same prayers, until the waiting itself became a kind of steady rhythm rather than a held breath. Let your own waiting settle into that same rhythm tonight, unhurried, unforced, simply continuing. The way breathing continues, the way this night will continue, all on its own toward morning. 10 days is a long time to wait for a promise with no fixed date on it. But the room held, and on the day the promise finally arrived, it did not arrive the way you might expect a promise like that to arrive. There was no announcement first, no gathering of a crowd, no stage. It came to people who were simply sitting down, indoors, doing nothing in particular, in the middle of an ordinary morning. You may have expected, if you were reading this book for the first time, that the arrival of something this significant would need a significant amount of build-up, some visible sign in the days beforehand that today was going to be different from every other day. There was none. The 10th day looked, by every outward measure, exactly like the 9th. That is worth remembering on any ordinary night of your own, tonight included. The outward measure of a day rarely tells you what is actually arriving inside it. We are going to slow all the way down here, because this is the passage the whole book has been walking toward, and it deserves to be told at the pace it actually happened at, not the pace excitement usually tells it at. Most retellings rush this part. They reach for the loudest words first, the wind and the fire, and they skip past the plainest word of all, which is sitting, Before anything else in this story happens, a room full of people are simply sitting, the way you are lying now, with nowhere else they are trying to be. Think of the morning itself for a moment, before the account even begins. An ordinary sunrise over an ordinary city, streets slowly filling with people going about an ordinary festival day. Nobody outside that room had any idea that anything unusual was about to happen inside it. And if you had walked past the window, you would likely have seen nothing more than a group of tired, quiet people sitting together. The way tired, quiet people do. There is something worth naming here about how the biggest turning points in a life often arrive dressed as nothing much at all. Not with trumpets, not with the calendar circled in advance. An ordinary Tuesday, an ordinary sitting down, an ordinary quiet morning that later turns out to have been the hinge everything else swung on. You will likely not know tonight which of your own ordinary evenings this one is that has never been required. You are only asked to be sitting in it, the way that room was sitting, when whatever is coming decides to come. And when the day of Pentecost was fully come, they were all with one accord in one place. And suddenly there came a sound from heaven, as of a rushing mighty wind, and it filled all the house where they were sitting. Let the smallest phrase in that reading be the one you keep tonight, not the wind and not the sound, but the plain fact underneath them, where they were sitting. The Comforter did not wait for anyone to stand up first, or dress for the occasion, or prepare a speech. He came to people already seated, already still, already doing exactly what you're doing right now. If you have ever felt that you needed to get yourself into some better condition before anything good could reach you, straighten up first, become more prepared, more deserving, more ready. Let this correct that gently. Nobody in that room did anything to get ready beyond simply staying seated where they already were. Wherever you are lying right now, however unprepared or unremarkable the moment feels, it is enough. It was always going to be enough. There is a kind of striving that quietly assumes rest has to be earned first, that a person must prove themselves tired enough, or good enough, or finished enough with the day's obligations before sleep is fully permitted. That striving can be set down now, along with everything else. Rest was never a reward here. It was always simply offered, and there appeared unto them cloven tongues like as of fire, and it sat upon each of them. And they were all filled with the Holy Ghost, and began to speak with other tongues, as the Spirit gave them utterance. There is no exclamation point anywhere in the true account of that morning, and there will not be one here either. This was not a spectacle for its own sake. It was a quiet filling of ordinary seated people. And it is told here at the same even volume as everything else in this book, because that is closer to how it actually felt from the inside than any dramatic retelling could be. You may have imagined this scene before from a painting somewhere, or a sermon, with everyone on their feet, arms raised, faces lit with astonishment. Hold that image loosely tonight, and let this quieter one sit alongside it instead. A room full of seated people, a sound like wind, but no wind actually moving the curtains. A settling, not a storm. Whatever filled that room did not need anyone in it to perform amazement for it to be real. It simply came, and it rested on people who were not looking for it, and it asked nothing dramatic of them in return. There is a difference worth naming between a sound that announces itself and a presence that simply arrives. Wind, as most of us know it, moves things, rattles shutters, bends branches. This sound was described as being like a rushing wind, and yet nothing in the room was said to have moved. It filled the space without disturbing it, the way real peace tends to work, filling a room without needing to rearrange anything in it first. That is worth carrying into your own quiet tonight. You do not have to feel something enormous for something real to be happening in you right now. Rest is not a lesser gift because it arrives without fanfare. The same God who filled a seated room with his own spirit is entirely capable of meeting you exactly where you are, lying still, doing nothing more remarkable than breathing slowly in the dark. If you have ever compared your own quiet faith to someone else's louder testimony and come away feeling as though yours was somehow the lesser version, let this passage correct that gently tonight. The people in that room did not compete for the most dramatic reaction. They simply received what was given, each in their own way. Some perhaps overwhelmed, others perhaps only aware of a stillness settling deeper than it had been a moment before. Both were the same gift. Neither needed to look like the other to be real. There is room in this account for the quiet responder as well as the visibly moved one. There is room for you tonight. However tonight happens to be going for you, however loud or quiet your own sense of anything sacred happens to feel right now. It filled the house where they were sitting. It can fill the room where you are lying, exactly as it is, without asking you to feel any particular way about it first. Let this be the movement where you stop monitoring how you feel about any of this. There is no correct emotional response required tonight. No bar of feeling to clear before the rest of this reading can do you any good. You are permitted simply to lie here, listening, or not quite listening, and let that be entirely sufficient. Peter had just watched a whole room become suddenly, unmistakably filled, and now he stood to explain it to a crowd that had gathered outside, drawn by the sound and unsure what they were witnessing. He did not reach for new words to describe it. He reached backward into an old prophecy his listeners already knew by heart, because the surest way to make something new believable is often to show how long it had already been promised. What came next was not a promise for a chosen few. It was widened on purpose to cover everyone in the room and everyone listening, since young and old, servant and free, and it landed with particular tenderness on one line that belongs to you tonight in a way few promises do. Your old men shall dream dreams, not your young men only, not the useful and the busy and the strong, the ones with years behind them, the ones who might otherwise think their part in the story was mostly finished. That line was written for you. It would have been easy if this promise had been written differently, for it to belong only to the young. Visions tend to be described that way in most old stories as something for the ones with the most years still ahead of them, the ones with strength left to spend chasing what they see. But this promise was not written that way. It went out of its way to name the old men specifically, not as an afterthought tacked onto the end of a list, but as one of its central words. Dreaming in this promise is not a young person's privilege. It is simply a gift given without regard for how many years you have already lived, or how tired those years may have left you feeling tonight. If you are carrying decades behind you tonight, decades of work, of raising others, of burying people you loved, of simply enduring what needed to be endured, hear this plainly. Your years are not a disqualification from anything good that is still coming. If anything, this old promise suggests the opposite, that the dreaming gets richer, not thinner, the longer a person has lived. Whatever you thought your part in any story might be finished, this line insists otherwise, gently, without needing you to argue back. Perhaps the dream this promise has in mind for you tonight is not a grand one. Perhaps it is only the quiet hope of one more good morning, one more ordinary joy, one more evening like the one this whole night is walking toward. That is not a lesser dream. It may, in fact, be the truest kind there is, the kind that does not need to be large to be entirely worth having. There is a particular ache that can settle into a person somewhere around this age, a quiet suspicion that the interesting part of life has already happened, that whatever is still ahead will mostly be maintenance, not discovery. This next passage was spoken directly into that ache on purpose, by name, and it did not soften the promise to make it more believable. It simply said dreams to the old and let the word stand. Think of everyone you have ever known who seemed to grow more curious, not less, the older they became. Someone who took up a new small joy in their later years that they never would have made time for earlier. Someone whose faith, rather than going stale with age, kept finding new rooms to walk into. That is not the exception this promise describes. It is closer to the rule this promise was written to protect. There is a version of growing older that our culture tells more often than this one. A story of steady narrowing, fewer possibilities, smaller horizons. This ancient promise was recorded by people who had watched it happen the other way, who had seen age deepen a person's capacity for wonder rather than shrink it, and they wrote it down plainly enough that neither you nor anyone else could talk them out of it. Peter stood that morning and told the crowd plainly what they were seeing, and he reached back for words far older than any of them, from the prophet Joel. "And it shall come to pass in the last days, saith God, I will pour out of my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, and your young men shall see visions, and your old men shall dream dreams. And on my servants and on my handmaidens I will pour out in those days of my spirit, and they shall prophesy, sons and daughters, servants and handmaidens, young men and old men." The list keeps widening with every line, as if the promise itself could not help but keep including one more group and then another, until there was no one left standing outside it. That widening is worth resting in tonight. Whatever category you might have quietly placed yourself in, too old, too tired, too far from the center of things, the promise has already widened past it. Even servants and handmaidens are named specifically. People who in that world had the least social standing of anyone in the room, the least claim to any promise being made about them at all, and yet there they are, named in the same breath as everyone else, receiving exactly the same spirit as anyone with more standing than they had. Whatever you feel you lack standing for tonight, this promise has already made room for you too. The old prophecy went further still, describing a day none of us needs to picture tonight to receive its promise. What matters here, what has always mattered here, is the giving, not the description wrapped around it. And it shall come to pass that whosoever shall call on the name of the Lord shall be saved. That is where the promise settles, on whosoever, which is the widest word in any language, not the young only, not the strong only. Whosoever, which has always included you and includes you tonight, dreaming or not, awake or already halfway gone. And it shall come to pass that whosoever shall call on the name of the Lord shall be saved. Whosoever is a word with no age printed on it anywhere. It does not check the calendar first. It does not ask how many years you have left or how many you have already spent. It only asks whether you will call, and it promises, without hedging, that the calling will be met. There is a kind of dreaming this promise has in mind that has nothing to do with grand visions or dramatic pictures behind closed eyes. Sometimes it is quieter than that. A softened hope you had almost stopped letting yourself have. A small, stubborn sense that something good is still possible, even now, even at this age, even after everything that has already happened to you. If that quiet, almost embarrassed kind of hoping is still alive in you somewhere tonight, this promise was written for exactly that, and it does not ask you to make it any louder than it already is. Let that be the last thought you carry out of this movement, not the fire and the wonders that were never meant to be pictured here tonight, but the plain, wide, undated promise underneath them, wide enough tonight to hold you exactly as you are, exactly as old or as tired as you happen to be. What grew out of that morning was not a movement in the sense we usually mean the word. It was closer to a household, wider than any one family, ordinary in its daily shape, and extraordinary only in how little anyone in it seemed to be afraid for themselves. Here is how it is described, in words plain enough to read like a grocery list, and warm enough to be one of the gentlest pictures in the whole of Scripture. Money worry has a particular way of showing up right around this hour, when the house is quiet and there is nothing left to distract from it. The unpaid bill, the uncertain month ahead, the quiet arithmetic that runs itself over and over without ever quite resolving, no matter how many times you run it. If any part of tonight's dark has that shape for you, this next passage was chosen with you specifically in mind. It rarely announces itself as fear outright. It usually shows up dressed as responsibility, as simply being careful, as staying on top of things the way a sensible person should. But underneath the careful checking, there is often something quieter and more anxious, a fear that has learned to speak the language of practicality so well that we forget it is fear at all. It is not a passage about becoming wealthy, and it will not promise you that. It is something quieter and, in its own way, sturdier than that. It is a picture of what a life looks like when the fear underneath money, the fear of not having enough, of being left out in the need, is not carried by any one person alone, but is set down together in the open where a whole household can see it and answer it. There is an old, quiet lie that money worry likes to whisper at this particular hour, that you are the only one holding your particular shortfall, that everyone else has somehow figured out what you have not. It is rarely true, and it was clearly not true in that early household, where the whole point of the picture is that plenty of people were short, openly, without shame, and were met without delay. Whatever you are short on tonight, you are not the first person to lie awake over it, and you will not be met with less mercy than they were. It can help simply to say the worry out loud in your own mind, plainly, without dressing it up or making it sound more dramatic than it is. Whatever the actual number is, whatever the actual shortfall, it is smaller in the light of this promise than it feels at 1 a.m, and it has never once been a shortfall that disqualified anyone from being cared for. Money worry has a way of feeling larger at this hour than it will feel again tomorrow, in daylight, with other people around and other things to do. Let it be exactly as large as it actually is, no larger, and let the rest of it wait for a clearer hour to be examined in. And they continued steadfastly in the apostles' doctrine and fellowship, and in breaking of bread, and in prayers. Steadfastly is the word to notice here, the same steady, daily, continuing this whole night keeps returning to. Whatever peace this book offers, it rarely arrives as a single dramatic moment. It arrives the way this next picture arrived, built day after ordinary day, out of people simply continuing to show up for each other without keeping score of how many times. And what grew out of that steadiness was a kind of household wider than any one family, where nothing was held so tightly that a neighbor went without, and all that believed were together and had all things common, and sold their possessions and goods, and parted them to all men, as every man had need. Picture what that actually meant for an ordinary week. It meant no one lay awake doing arithmetic about whether there would be enough. It meant a life with the anxiety taken out of the sums, not because everyone suddenly had more, but because what anyone had stopped being only theirs to guard. That is not a call to worry over your own accounts tonight. It is only a picture offered gently of what it looks like when fear about tomorrow's needs is set down by a whole room at once, and no one has to carry it alone. Somewhere in that household there was surely someone who had less than most, the way there always is, and somewhere else in it there was someone who had more than they needed, the way there sometimes is. What made the picture gentle was not that the difference disappeared, it was that the difference stopped being frightening. Need in that room was met the way a family meets a need at its own table, quietly, without a ledger being kept, without anyone being made to feel small for asking. Asking is often the hardest part, harder even than the shortage itself. Pride has a way of making the asking feel like a small defeat, a thing to be avoided at nearly any cost. This early household seems to have quietly dismantled that fear. There is no record of anyone being questioned about how their need arose, or made to prove they deserved to be helped. The need itself was the only qualification required. If tonight's worry has a number attached to it, set the number down for a moment, not because it does not matter, but because it does not need solving at 1 a.m. The God who moved an entire household to hold its resources loosely is not asking you to solve anything tonight. He is only asking you to rest the way that household rested, inside a provision wider than any single set of hands could hold alone. There is an old habit many of us carry into the night without noticing, the habit of totaling things up just before sleep, as though a final tally might somehow settle the account before morning. The bills against the income, the expenses against what is left. It rarely settles anything. It only keeps the mind circling an equation that was never going to resolve itself at this hour, no matter how many times it is run. Set the ledger down tonight, the way that early households seemed able to, not because the numbers do not matter in daylight, but because daylight is where numbers belong, and this is not daylight. This is the part of the day that was built for rest, and rest does not require the accounts to be finished first. It only requires you to stop reaching for them for a few hours and let tomorrow's light do the reaching instead. And all that believed were together and had all things common. This next passage is the warmest room in the whole book, and we will stay in it longer than any other tonight, reading it slowly, the way you might sit a long while at a table after the meal itself is finished, because no one at that table is in any hurry to leave. Everything this book has shown us up to now has been building toward exactly this kind of room, the waiting in the upper chamber, the filling that came to people already seated, the whole household holding its resources loosely. All of it was leading here to an ordinary table, because that in the end is what all of it was for. There is a particular kind of evening this passage is trying to describe, and most of us know it, even if we have not tasted it in a long while. It is not a celebration exactly, not a special occasion with decorations and speeches. It is smaller than that and somehow deeper than that. It is the ordinary evening that simply goes on a little longer than it needed to, because everyone at the table would rather stay than leave, and no one is checking the hour. If it has been a while since an evening felt like that for you, this passage is not here to remind you of what you are missing. It is here to offer you the same warmth second-hand, borrowed for tonight from a table 2,000 years gone, still somehow burning as steadily as it did the evening it was first lit. You do not have to have anyone in the room with you right now for this kind of gladness to reach you. It was written down in part so that it could travel this far. Let yourself receive it secondhand without any guilt about receiving it that way. Not every good thing has to be freshly made to be real. Some of the warmest comfort available to any of us has always traveled a long distance to arrive, carried across years, across languages, across every kind of change, and it arrives tonight exactly as warm as it left. Think of the smell of bread still warm from being broken, the low murmur of more than one voice at once, none of it urgent, all of it comfortable. Think of a lamp that nobody has bothered to trim because the evening has not felt long enough yet to need it. None of this requires the guests to be extraordinary people or the food to be anything more than ordinary food. It only requires everyone at the table to have stopped hurrying, which is precisely what you're doing right now. Lying here, unhurried, at the far end of your own long day. There is nothing left to prove at a table like that, nothing to perform, no impression left to manage. That is, in the end, what made it so restful. Not the food and not even the company exactly, but the simple absence of any pressure to be anything other than exactly who was already sitting there. And they, continuing daily with one accord in the temple, and breaking bread from house to house, did eat their meat with gladness and singleness of heart, house to house. The reading says, which meant this was not a single grand gathering held once and remembered forever. It happened again and again in ordinary homes, night after night, until it simply became how that whole community lived. Whatever peace you find tonight, in this movement especially, is not meant to be a single memorable high point either. It is meant to become an ordinary habit of rest, available to you again tomorrow night and the night after that. Singleness of heart is worth turning over slowly. It is the exact opposite of what your mind may be doing to you right now at this hour. The 2 o'clock mind, the one that runs 3 conversations and a worry list and an old memory all at the same time. None of them finishing, none of them letting the others rest. Singleness of heart is one thing at a time. One table, one meal, one gladness, with nothing running underneath it. That, and not any escape from the world, is what the Spirit's arrival on that ordinary morning actually produced in the people who received it. Not constant excitement, a quiet, undivided heart. Most of us carry several rooms inside us at once without ever meaning. One room where tomorrow's tasks are waiting. One room where an old regret still sits, half finished. One room where a worry about someone we love keeps pacing back and forth, never quite settling. Singleness of heart is not the absence of all those rooms. It is simply choosing for this hour to close their doors gently and sit in only one room at a time, the room where you actually are right now, breathing, warm, and not required to solve anything else until morning. None of those other rooms are being abandoned by closing their doors for tonight. Nothing in them is being lost or left unresolved forever, They will still be exactly where you left them in the morning, ready to be opened again if they still need attention. For tonight, they can simply wait, quiet, undisturbed, while you sit in the one room that has always mattered most at this particular hour, which is only this one, only now, only this single unhurried breath after another. Try it now if it helps. Let the tomorrow room go quiet. Let the old regret room go quiet. Let the worry about someone you love room go quiet. Not forever, only for tonight, only long enough for you to rest the way that ordinary table rested, gladly, undivided, in no hurry to be anywhere else, praising God and having favor with all the people. And the Lord added to the church daily such as should be saved. Let your own heart be single for a moment, the way theirs was, not divided between the day behind you and the day ahead of you. Just this, just now, just the gladness of being kept, breathing warm, and not required to do anything else tonight. Notice the small phrase tucked at the very end of that reading, easy to skip past. Daily. Not once as a single burst of joy that faded by the following week, but daily added to steadily, the way warmth is added to a room, log by log, rather than all at once. Whatever gladness has felt distant to you lately, it does not need to arrive all at once tonight either. A little is enough. A single quiet evening like this one is already, in its own small way, a log added to the fire. There is one more small detail worth lingering over before we move on. The detail of favor. Having favor with all the people, the reading says, almost in passing. Not favor won by striving for it, not favor earned through cleverness or charm, but favor that simply arrived, the natural overflow of a household that had stopped grasping and started sharing. It is worth asking, gently, whether some of what you have spent years trying to earn might arrive the same way, not through more effort, but through less grasping. Let this whole movement settle over you now like a blanket drawn up slowly. Gladness, singleness of heart, a table with room enough for everyone who came. Favor that did not need to be chased. None of it is out of reach tonight. Not because you have done anything to deserve it, but because it was never that kind of gift to begin with. And they, continuing daily with one accord in the temple and breaking bread from house to house, did eat their meat with gladness and singleness of heart. Not everyone in this book started out gentle. There was a man named Saul, hard and certain, who spent his days hunting down the very people this book has been following so far. Not long before, a man named Stephen had died at peace with God while Saul stood watching, and Saul had spent the time since going after everyone who believed what Stephen believed. He was on a road one day, on his way to do more of the same, when everything he was certain of came to a sudden stop. We have spent this whole night so far among people who were already gentle, already waiting, already gathered in gladness. This next figure is different, and he is included here on purpose, because mercy that only ever visits the already gentle is not much of a mercy at all. If any part of tonight's darkness has to do with something you did rather than something that was simply done to you, a wrong turn, a hard season where you were not your best self. This movement was chosen to include you too. This whole book has room for the waiting and the wounded. It also has room for the ones who caused harm and were met with mercy anyway. This next reading will be shorter than the others tonight and kept deliberately gentle, because mercy does not need to be dramatized to be believed. It only needs to be told plainly, the way it actually happened, to a man who had done nothing that morning to earn it and everything up to that point to forfeit it. Whatever hardness you have carried in your own life, and most of us carry some version of it, a grudge kept too long, a certainty that turned out to be wrong, a season where we were simply not the gentlest version of ourselves. This account was not written to shame that hardness. It was written to show what happens when mercy meets it head on, without warning and without requiring the hardness to soften first. And as he journeyed, he came near Damascus, and suddenly there shined round about him a light from heaven, and he fell to the earth, and heard a voice saying unto him, Saul, Saul, why persecutest thou me? Notice that the light did not wait for an invitation. Saul was not seeking it, had not asked for it, was not even aware that anything was missing from his certainty until it stopped him where he stood. Mercy in this account is not summoned. It arrives in its own time, on its own initiative, and it does not ask permission first. And he said, Who art thou, Lord? And the Lord said, I am Jesus whom thou persecutest. It is hard for thee to kick against the pricks. And he, trembling and astonished, said, Lord, what wilt thou have me to do? And the Lord said unto him, Arise, and go into the city, and it shall be told thee what thou must do. And the men which journeyed with him stood speechless, hearing a voice, but seeing no man. And Saul arose from the earth, and when his eyes were opened, he saw no man, but they led him by the hand, and brought him into Damascus. And he was 3 days without sight, and neither did eat nor drink. And there was a certain disciple at Damascus named Ananias, and to him said the Lord in a vision, Ananias. And he said, Behold, I am here, Lord. And the Lord said unto him, Arise, and go into the street which is called Straight, and inquire in the house of Judas for one called Saul of Tarsus. For behold, he prayeth, and hath seen in a vision a man named Ananias coming in, and putting his hand on him, that he might receive his sight. Then Ananias answered, Lord, I have heard by many of this man, how much evil he hath done to thy saints at Jerusalem. And here he hath authority from the chief priests to bind all that call on thy name. But the Lord said unto him, Go thy way, for he is a chosen vessel unto me, to bear my name before the Gentiles and kings and the children of Israel. For I will show him how great things he must suffer for my name's sake. And Ananias went his way, and entered into the house, and putting his hands on him said, Brother Saul, the Lord, even Jesus that appeared unto thee in the way as thou camest hath sent me, that thou mightest receive thy sight, and be filled with the Holy Ghost. He was called brother before he had done a single thing yet to deserve the word, not after he had proven himself, not after a long season of penance. Before. That is the order mercy usually keeps. If you have ever wondered, most of us assume it must run the other way, that we have to become presentable first, sort ourselves out, arrive at the door already cleaned up, before we are allowed to be spoken to gently. This account simply does not work that way. The gentleness came first, while the dust of the old road was still on him, before there had been time for anything about him to change. Whatever you believe still needs sorting out in you before you deserve a kind word tonight. Let it wait. The kind word does not. Notice too that Ananias himself was afraid to go. He said so plainly, out loud, before he obeyed anyway. Courage here did not mean the fear was absent. It meant walking into the house regardless and speaking the gentle word regardless, trusting a promise that had not yet been proven true by anything he could see with his own eyes, and immediately there fell from his eyes as it had been scales. And he received sight forthwith and arose and was baptized. And when he had received meat, he was strengthened. Brother Saul, the Lord, even Jesus, that appeared unto thee in the way as thou camest, hath sent me, that thou mightest receive thy sight, and be filled with the Holy Ghost. Whatever hardness you have carried, whatever road you have been walking down for reasons that felt certain at the time, that single word is still on offer tonight, brother. Not earned, not delayed until you have proven yourself worthy of it, simply spoken, the way it was spoken to a man who least expected to hear it, and simply true. Let that word settle over you now, however it applies to you tonight. Brother or sister or simply beloved, whichever version of it reaches you most gently. It was spoken once plainly to a man on the worst morning of his old life, and it is being spoken again now to you on whatever kind of night this happens to be. Some years later, Peter had been taken and put in prison for his faith, and the whole church prayed for him without ceasing, praying and not stopping through the length of a hard night. What happens next may be the single most restful image in the entire book, and it belongs to you tonight more than to anyone who has ever heard it before, because it is about a man who was rescued while he was fast asleep. This is the movement this whole night has quietly been walking toward. Everything before it, the waiting, the filling, the shared table, has been preparing the ground for this one plain, almost startling fact, that rest itself can be an act of faith rather than a lapse in vigilance. Think for a moment about everything Peter did not know lying there in that cell. He did not know that deliverance was already decided. He did not know that by morning the whole situation would be entirely different than it had been the night before. He knew only what anyone in his position would have known, that the outlook was bad, that the guards on either side of him were real, and that there was very little, from where he lay, that he alone could do about any of it. And in the middle of not knowing any of that, he slept. That is not naivety. It is something closer to the deepest kind of trust there is, the kind that does not require an answer in hand before it is willing to rest. Most of us, most nights, want the outcome settled before we allow ourselves to sleep. We want to know how the thing turns out first, and only then will we let our guard down. Peter did not have that luxury, and he slept anyway, chained, guarded, with no evidence yet that anything was going to change. If he could sleep there, under an actual sentence, in an actual cell, you're permitted to sleep here under nothing worse tonight than an ordinary worry that has not been solved yet either. It is worth pausing on the detail of the two soldiers, one on either side of him. Nothing about his circumstances had softened. The danger was as real when he closed his eyes as it had been the hour before. Sleep in this account is not a reward for the danger having passed. It is something Peter was able to do in the very middle of it, chained to the exact people guarding him, because whatever peace he had did not depend on his situation changing first. This is worth returning to slowly because it runs so directly against how most of us have learned to manage a hard night. We tend to believe peace has to arrive before rest can, that we must first talk ourselves out of the fear, or resolve the situation, or at least feel reasonably confident about how things will turn out before sleep is allowed to come. Peter's story simply does not support that order. He slept first, chained, uncertain, and the peace and the deliverance both arrived while he was already resting in the middle of the very danger that should have kept him awake. Whoever first told this story, in whatever early gathering it was first told, chose to keep this detail rather than smooth it over. It would have been easy to leave the sleeping out, to have Peter praying fervently through the night instead, awake and alert until rescue came. That is not what was kept. What was kept is a man asleep, entirely unaware, entirely unhelpful to his own deliverance, and entirely completely kept anyway. Peter therefore was kept in prison, but prayer was made without ceasing of the church unto God for him. And when Herod would have brought him forth, the same night Peter was sleeping between two soldiers, bound with two chains, and the keepers before the door kept the prison. Sit with that for a moment, before the reading goes any further. On the very night before he was to be brought out, with everything at stake, Peter was asleep, not lying awake, rehearsing an escape, not straining to stay alert in case he was needed. Asleep, chained between two guards at rest. Whatever was going to happen to him that night, he had already let go of trying to manage it himself. It is worth remembering that Peter was not always the calmest man in any of these accounts. Elsewhere he is impulsive, quick to speak, quick to act. And yet here, on the one night, it would have made the most sense to be wide awake and alert. He was simply asleep. Whatever changed in him between his more anxious moments and this one, it was not that the danger had lessened. It was that something in him had finally stopped needing to manage the danger himself. And behold, the angel of the Lord came upon him, and a light shined in the prison. And he smote Peter on the side and raised him up, saying, Arise up quickly. And his chains fell off from his hands. And the angel said unto him, Gird thyself and bind on thy sandals. And so he did. And he saith unto him, Cast thy garment about thee, and follow me. And he went out and followed him, and wist not that it was true which was done by the angel, but thought he saw a vision. When they were past the first and the second ward, they came unto the iron gate that leadeth unto the city, which opened to them of his own accord, and they went out, and passed on through one street, and forthwith the angel departed from him. And when Peter was come to himself, he said, Now I know of a surety that the Lord hath sent his angel, and hath delivered me out of the hand of Herod, and from all the expectation of the people of the Jews. The deliverance was already on its way to him while he was unconscious. It did not wait for him to wake up and help. It did not need his strength or his planning or even his awareness that anything was happening at all. He did nothing but sleep, and the rescue came and found him anyway. That is not a story about Peter's faith so much as it is a story about what happens to people who are kept while they cannot keep themselves, which tonight is you. Even the moment of waking is described gently. He was struck on the side, not shaken awake in fear, and told simply to rise. There was no scramble, no panic, no last desperate effort on his part to save himself. Someone else did the waking, and someone else had already done the work of loosening what had been fastened around him. All that was left for Peter to do was to follow, half aware, half certain he was only dreaming, out through a gate that opened on its own before he had to ask it to. You may not feel tonight like you are being rescued from anything as dramatic as a prison, but the same pattern holds for smaller griefs too. Whatever is fastened around you tonight, worry, sorrow, an old ache that will not quite let go, it is not waiting for you to solve it before it can be loosened. You are permitted to sleep through the loosening the same way Peter did, unaware, unhelpful, entirely carried. The same night Peter was sleeping between two soldiers, bound with two chains, and the keepers before the door kept the prison. Let that be the picture you carry into your own sleep tonight. If you carry only one picture out of this whole night's reading, a man surrounded on every side by reasons to stay awake, and sleeping anyway, kept by something stronger than the chains, stronger than the guards, stronger than the fear that would have kept most of us staring at the ceiling until dawn. There is a small phrase in this account that a hurried reading skips right past without ceasing. That is how the church is described as having prayed for him, and it may be worth remembering. If you have ever wondered whether prayer offered for you in a hard season ever really lands anywhere, that it was already at work long before the angel ever stepped into that cell. Peter did not know it was happening. He was asleep for the whole of it. The praying went on without needing his awareness, and it reached him anyway. If someone has ever told you they were praying for you on a night you could not feel it, believe now that it was not wasted. And if no one knows to pray for you tonight, let this reading itself stand in for that, offered quietly over the dark room you are lying in, whether you can feel it landing or not. Rest now the way Peter rested, chained and watched, and entirely unaware of the deliverance already on its way toward him. You do not need to know how your own night resolves in order to sleep through it well. Not every night in this book ends in sleep, though. Some of them are for the one who is still awake, still here, still listening at an hour when it would be easier to have drifted off already. This next scene is for you. It had been a hard day for two men named Paul and Silas. They had been beaten in a public square and shut deep inside a prison, their feet fastened in stocks meant to keep them from moving at all. By night, though, this is where the account finds them. There is no shame in being the one still listening at this point in the night. This whole devotional was built to meet you exactly here, whether that turns out to be 5 minutes from now or much later after several more movements have passed. If you're the one tonight who has not drifted off yet, who is still here at an hour that usually belongs to no one but the anxious and the sleepless, this movement was written with you specifically in view. Peter's story a moment ago was for the sleeper. This one is different. It does not ask you to fall asleep immediately. It only asks what you might do with the waking hour you're actually in. There is a particular loneliness to being awake when it feels like the rest of the world has settled. The house is quiet in a way that can feel comforting to some and unbearable to others, depending on what is keeping you company in the dark. Paul and Silas were not comforted by their circumstances either. They were bruised, confined, and had every reason to lie there in silence, nursing the unfairness of it. They chose something else instead, and the choosing did not require the pain to have already eased. It would have been entirely reasonable for them to spend that night in silent anger, replaying the injustice of the beating, rehearsing what they might have said to defend themselves earlier. Nobody would have blamed them for it. Instead, they turned towards something outside their own circumstances entirely, and the turning itself seems to have changed the shape of the hour, long before the earthquake ever came. The prisoners heard them, the account says, almost in passing. A small detail, easy to miss, and yet worth noticing. Whatever those two men offered that night was not kept to themselves. It reached other people in other cells who had no part in choosing it, who simply happened to be within hearing of it. You do not always know. When you offer something quiet and unremarkable in a hard hour, who else it might be reaching. Whoever else is listening to this reading tonight, in whatever room, in whatever kind of night they happen to be having, let this same quiet offering reach them too, the way that song reached prisoners who never asked to hear it and were comforted by it anyway. And at midnight, Paul and Silas prayed and sang praises unto God, and the prisoners heard them. That is the whole of it worth holding on to tonight. Not that the trouble disappeared, it had not yet. But at the hour when fear usually gets loudest, in the deep middle of the night, these two men found something to do with the dark besides be afraid of it. They sang quietly. In a locked room, to no audience but each other, and whoever else was listening in the cells nearby. If you're awake at an hour like that tonight, you do not have to sing anything. You only have to know that midnight is not an emptied hour. Something can still be offered inside it. There is no record of what the song even was. Perhaps an old psalm, perhaps something simpler, half remembered, sung more for the comfort of the singing than for any particular words. It hardly matters. What matters is only that the offering was made at all, in a place built to crush any impulse toward offering anything. Notice that they did not wait for the trouble to end before they began. They did not wait for the door to open or the pain to fade or the outcome to become clear. They began in the middle of the worst of it, because midnight does not owe anyone a resolved story before it can be answered. If you are awake right now with nothing resolved yet either, you are not failing this hour by being awake in it. You are simply in the same room Paul and Silas were in, at the same hour, with the same option quietly available to you that was available to them, which is simply to stay, without panic, and let the hour pass through you rather than over you. And suddenly there was a great earthquake, so that the foundations of the prison were shaken, and immediately all the doors were opened, and everyone's bands were loosed. The jailer woke from sleep and saw the prison doors standing open, and for one terrible moment he believed every prisoner had run. Paul called out to him in the dark that no one had gone. They were all there, every one of them still exactly in their place. But Paul cried with a loud voice, saying, "Do thyself no harm, for we are all here." Then he called for a light, and sprang in, and came trembling, and fell down before Paul and Silas, and brought them out, and said, "Sirs, what must I do to be saved?" And they said, "Believe on the Lord Jesus Christ, and thou shalt be saved, and thy house." The very man who had been guarding them only hours before was the one asking by morning to be saved himself. Whatever role you have played in your own hardest nights, guard or prisoner, the one causing the fear or the one carrying it, this account leaves room for every part to be changed by what happens at midnight. And they spake unto him the word of the Lord, and to all that were in his house, and he took them the same hour of the night, and washed their stripes, and was baptized, he and all his straightway. And when he had brought them into his house, he set meat before them, and rejoiced, believing in God with all his house. That is where this movement ends. Not in the prison, and not in the earthquake, but in an ordinary house, at an ordinary hour, with the family fed and washed and settled, all of them together, all of them rejoicing, none of them any longer afraid of the night. Whatever hour it is where you are right now, let it become an ordinary hour again. Not the frightening hour it may have felt like a moment ago, just an hour passing, the way every other hour tonight will pass, carrying you a little closer to morning whether you notice it happening or not. Notice too that nobody in that account waited to be rescued before they let themselves be glad. The rejoicing came the same night as the earthquake, in the very house where the fear had been only hours before. Joy in this book does not seem to require the story to be entirely finished first. It arrives in the middle, sometimes right alongside everything that has not yet been resolved, and at midnight Paul and Silas prayed and sang praises unto God, and the prisoners heard them. The story moves now to open water sometime later, on a much longer voyage. Paul was a prisoner being carried by ship toward Rome, and for the better part of 2 weeks the storm had not once let the sky show itself, not the sun by day, and not a single star by night. This is the last kind of trouble the book will ask you to sit inside tonight. And it is fitting that it takes the shape it does, a long, disorienting stretch, with no clear marker of how much longer it will last. Most real hardship has that shape, more than it has the shape of a single dramatic event. The reflections from here on will be shorter than the ones before them, and the holds a little longer, because the material itself no longer needs much unpacking. It only needs to be heard slowly, the way a tired crew would have heard it, half in the dark, half not quite believing yet that it could be true. Let your own thoughts grow shorter and slower along with it now too, if they have not already. There is less and less left tonight that needs working through, and more that can simply be received quietly, the way the rest of this reading is about to be given to you. 2 weeks is worth sitting with for a moment. Not 2 hours of trouble, not a single hard night, but 14 days and 14 nights of the same grey sky, the same tossing deck, the same absence of any sign that things were about to change. Most of what wears a person down is not the sharp, sudden thing. It is the long thing. The thing that does not resolve on any schedule you can see, that simply goes on being true morning after morning after morning. If some worry of yours has worn on that long or longer, you are not failing to recover from it quickly enough. 14 days at sea did not resolve any faster for wanting to. It simply had to be lived through, one grey morning at a time, until it was not the case anymore, and when neither sun nor stars in many days appeared, and no small tempest lay on us, all hope that we should be saved was then taken away. Notice who says this line: not a bystander, not a stranger to the ship, but one of the very people living through the storm, someone who had every right to feel exactly what he is describing. Even the man who will shortly say, "I believe God had," just verses before, said aloud that hope was gone. Both statements came from the same honest mouth. Faith here did not require pretending the first one had never been true. 14 days is a long time to go without a clear sky, and by this point in the voyage even the most hopeful person aboard had likely stopped expecting one. Paul stood up among them and spoke. Try to imagine what 14 days without a clear sky does to 276 people crowded onto a single ship. No confirmation of position, no way to judge how far they had drifted, nothing overhead to anchor even the passage of a single day against the next. Fear, in a stretch like that, does not usually arrive as one sharp spike. It arrives as erosion, a little more each night, a little more color leaving the crew's hope until what is left is closer to numbness than fear at all. That is the room Paul stood up into, not a room of dramatic panic, a room worn thin. And now I exhort you to be of good cheer, for there shall be no loss of any man's life among you, but of the ship. For there stood by me this night the angel of God, whose I am and whom I serve, saying, Fear not, Paul, thou must be brought before Caesar, and lo, God hath given thee all them that sail with thee. Wherefore, sirs, be of good cheer, for I believe God, that it shall be even as it was told me. Notice how close together those two lines sit. All hope was taken away, and in almost the same breath, I believe God. The dark line is not denied, and it is not dwelt on either. It is simply answered right there, without a pause long enough for it to take over the room. If you are carrying a line like that tonight, some version of all hope was taken away. You do not have to argue it out of existence. You only have to let the next sentence come. That is worth saying again, slowly, because it runs against most of what a hard night teaches you to do. A hard night teaches you to defend the ground you are standing on, to argue yourself out of the fear before you can move forward. Paul does not do that here. He states the fear plainly, lets it stand exactly as true as it was a moment before, and then simply continues into the next thing that is also true. Both things share the room. Neither one has to leave first. Notice too what Paul actually believed, not that the storm would vanish, not that the ship would be spared, only that he and everyone with him would be kept. In the middle of a loss that was still going to happen. Belief here is not the same as a guarantee that nothing hard will occur. It is a quieter thing, closer to trust than to certainty, and it was enough to carry an entire frightened ship through 2 more weeks of open water. It is worth noticing too that nothing about the storm changed the moment Paul said this. The wind did not drop, the sky did not clear. 2 more weeks of open water were still ahead of every person listening to him, exactly as many as there had been an hour before he stood up. What changed was not the circumstance. What changed was that 276 frightened people now had one sentence to hold on to inside a circumstance that was not going to change quickly, and it turned out that was enough to carry them the rest of the way. Wherefore, sirs, be of good cheer, for I believe God, that it shall be even as it was told me. I believe God that it shall be even as it was told me. Let that be your own quiet sentence tonight. Borrowed if you need to borrow it, however far your own storm has carried you from where you thought you would be by now. You do not have to believe it loudly. You do not have to believe it without any trace of the fear that was honest a moment ago. You only have to let it be the next true thing you say to yourself, the way Paul let it be the next true thing he said to a ship full of people who needed more than an explanation, simply somewhere steady to rest their attention until morning. 2 more weeks passed on the water before this story reaches its last morning, and the sea had not softened, only grown familiar. As dawn came near this final time, Paul stood up once more, and the last thing he asked of that frightened, exhausted crew was simple. He asked them to eat. This is the final storm this night. Will ask you to sit inside, and it ends the way most of them eventually do. Not with a rescue that arrives all at once, but with a slow, steady arrival at solid ground that nobody quite noticed happening until it already had. Not a speech, not a plan for how they would survive what was still ahead of them. Just a meal offered calmly as though the outcome were already settled, and there was nothing left to do now but tend to the ordinary business of a body that needed feeding. Notice the order of things here too. The land was not yet in sight. The danger had not yet passed, and still, the very first instruction given was to eat, to tend the ordinary needs of a body that had been neglected for 2 straight weeks. Rescue, when it is real, rarely waits until every danger has cleared before it starts attending to you. Sometimes it begins with something as small and as unglamorous as being told gently that it is all right to be fed now. 276 people had gone 2 full weeks without a proper meal, too afraid to eat, too tired to trust that eating still mattered. It is easy in a long ordeal to stop tending to the small ordinary needs of the body, as though attending to them was somehow beside the point while the larger crisis is still unresolved. Paul's instruction says otherwise. Eat, rest the body. Let it be fed even before the ending is certain, because the body still has to carry you through whatever the ending turns out to be. 2 full weeks of fasting is its own kind of exhaustion, separate from the exhaustion of the storm itself. A body that has stopped trusting that anything good is coming will often stop asking for what it needs, as though asking were itself a kind of hope it can no longer afford. If some part of you has quietly stopped asking for rest, for comfort, for anything beyond simply getting through, let this be the moment that gives you permission again. The ending does not have to be certain first, and while the day was coming on, Paul besought them all to take meat, saying, "This day is the 14th day that ye have tarried and continued fasting, having taken nothing. Wherefore I pray you to take some meat, for this is for your health. For there shall not an hair fall from the head of any of you." And when he had thus spoken, he took bread and gave thanks to God in presence of them all, and when he had broken it, he began to eat. Then were they all of good cheer, and they also took some meat. Notice that Paul gave thanks before he knew for certain how the morning would end. The land was not yet in sight. The ship had not yet run aground. He gave thanks in the middle of the uncertainty, not after it had resolved, and the giving of thanks did not need the resolution to arrive first in order to be sincere. There is something almost unhurried in the way the account describes it. He took bread, he gave thanks, he broke it, he began to eat. No urgency in the telling, even though the ship beneath him was still taking on water and the shore was still only a guess in the dark. That unhurried quality is not carelessness. It is what trust looks like when it has had 2 full weeks to settle into someone's bone. 276 frightened people watched one man eat calmly in front of them, and the account tells us that watching him was itself part of what steadied the rest of them enough to eat as well. Sometimes the steadiest thing available in a hard hour is simply the sight of one person choosing calm and letting that calm be contagious. You have likely been that one calm presence for someone else at some point, without ever being told how much it mattered. And you have likely also been one of the 275 steadied simply by watching someone else eat, breathe, rest, act as though the outcome were not yet lost. Tonight you can let yourself be in that second position again. Someone else, quietly, is holding steady so you do not have to. And we were in all in the ship 216 souls. And when they had eaten enough, they lightened the ship and cast out the wheat into the sea. And when it was day, they knew not the land, but they discovered a certain creek with a shore, into the which they were minded, if it were possible, to thrust in the ship. And when they had taken up the anchors, they committed themselves unto the sea, and loosed the rudder bands, and hoised up the mainsail to the wind, and made toward shore. And falling into a place where two seas met, they ran the ship aground, and the foreparts stuck fast, and remained unmovable. And the back of the ship began to break apart under the waves. There was talk among the soldiers just then of what should be done with the prisoners. But the centurion in charge of Paul would not permit it, and he had a plan of his own for every man on board. But the centurion, willing to save Paul, kept them from their purpose, and commanded that they which could swim should cast themselves first into the sea, and get to land, and the rest, some on boards, and some on broken pieces of the ship. And so it came to pass that they escaped all safe to land, every one of them. 276 souls left a broken ship in the middle of a black sea, and every single one of them reached solid ground. The storm is not the story here. The beaches, not one of them arrived the same way. Some swam, some clung to broken planks, some were carried on pieces of a ship that no longer resembled a ship at all. The account does not smooth that over into a single tidy picture of everyone walking calmly onto the sand together. It was messier than that, more varied than that. And it still ended the same way for every single person in the water. Your own path to morning does not have to look like anyone else's either, to still end in the same safe place. Let the last image of this movement be the beach, not the wreck. Whatever storm tonight's worry has put you in the middle of, the account does not linger there either. It moves steadily toward dry ground, and it takes everyone with it. It does not matter, in the end, what kind of vessel carried you there, whether you arrived steady and upright, or worn thin and barely holding on. The measure the account gives us is not how gracefully anyone reached the shore. It is only that they reached it, every one, and that the ground under their feet was solid the moment they stood back up on it. The book does not end the way you might expect a book about a movement that changed the world to end. There is no final battle, no dramatic sending out, no grand closing scene. It ends in a rented house with a man free to speak and a door standing open. No angel appears to close this book the way one appeared to open Paul's storm at sea. No voice from heaven, no final miracle set apart from the one this whole story has quietly been pointing toward the entire time, that an ordinary life, faithfully stayed inside, is itself the miracle worth ending on. The book simply stops, mid-sentence almost, the way a long day finally stops, Not because everything has been resolved, but because it is enough for now to have arrived here safely, still speaking, still received. A rented house. Not a palace, not a monument. Nothing built to last or to impress. Just an ordinary room. Paid for month by month. In a city Paul had not chosen to be in. And somehow, that plain, unremarkable room became the last picture this long book leaves us with. Whatever room you happen to be resting in tonight, however ordinary it is, it can hold exactly as much peace as that one did. There is no record of what that room looked like, no description of its walls or its furniture. Nothing to tell us whether it was warm or plain or small. The book does not need us to see it clearly. It only needs us to know that it existed, ordinary and unremarkable, and that inside it something durable kept happening anyway, day after day, without any need for a grander setting to make it real. Whatever room holds you tonight, however plain, however far from where you once imagined you would end up, it can hold exactly this same kind of quiet. We began this whole night in a different room, an upper chamber in Jerusalem, a small group of frightened, hopeful people waiting for a promise they could not yet see. We ended here in a rented house on the far edge of the known world, with the door left open and nobody forbidden from walking through it. The distance between those two rooms is the whole of this book and the whole of this night. You do not have to travel that whole distance again tonight. You have already arrived here at the end of it, and all that is left now is to rest inside the room the story has finally brought you to. No further movement required, no further travel, only the staying. And Paul dwelt 2 whole years in his own hired house, and received all that came in unto him, preaching the kingdom of God, and teaching those things which concern the Lord Jesus Christ with all confidence, no man forbidding him. No man forbidding him. Not a triumphant ending, an open one, a house where whoever came was received, and nothing shut against them. That is where the book leaves its last man standing, and it is where this night leaves you now, at an open door, with nothing forbidding you from resting exactly as you are, no permission required, no condition left unmet. Let that settle for a moment before the night closes around it completely. Nothing forbidding you, not the day behind you, not the worry that walked in with you, not whatever kept you awake enough to still be listening this far into the story. The door was left open on purpose, and it is still open now, and it will still be open when you wake. 2 whole years, the account says, in that one rented room, and it does not tell us anything more dramatic than that he kept the door open the whole time. Some stories end with a departure. This one ends with a staying quiet and unhurried. Exactly the kind of ending this whole night has been walking toward. Some nights ask you to keep moving. This one does not. This one only asks you to notice that the room is quiet, that the door is unlatched, that nothing at all is required of you now except to let your breathing slow the rest of the way down, here, in this last ordinary room, for as long as you need to stay in it. Let it be enough tonight to know that a story about being carried through storms and shipwrecks and years of waiting ends not with triumph but with rest, freely given, freely received, no more dramatic than a door left open in a quiet house. That is the shape this whole night has been walking toward from its very first lamp being lit. Let it be the shape you rest inside now too. There is nothing left to add to it. No further verse. No further reflection. Nothing more that needs saying before the room is allowed to go quiet. Whatever brought you here tonight, whatever kept you listening this long, it has already been received, gently, the same way that Rented House received everyone who ever came to its door. You do not have to earn the rest that is coming. It was already being kept for you the whole time, the same way it was kept for a room full of frightened people 2,000 years ago who had no idea yet how their own waiting would end. If you are already asleep, none of this last part was really for you, though it was said gently over the room anyway, the way a blessing is still said over a house, whether every window in it is lit or not. For the ones still here a little longer, a room full of people once waited together and were not ashamed of the waiting. Bread was eaten with gladness at a table where no one went without. A man slept soundly between two soldiers and was carried through the night without lifting a hand to help it happen. 2 men sang in the dark at midnight, and the dark did not get the last word. And everyone on a broken ship, every last one of them, reached the shore. This devotional is also on Spotify if you would like to come back and rest inside it again tomorrow night. The Lord bless you and keep you now, and keep you through this night and every night that follows it until the last morning finally comes and there is no more waiting left to do. You can stop listening now. The watch was never yours to keep.